Hey, welcome back into my workshop. I'm Daniel Betancourt with Kaizen 3D Prints, located in the Pacific Northwest, Oregon, West Coast. I want to talk today about the differences in 3D printers, specifically the P1S, the P1P, and the A1. So this is going to be a broad overview, and then we're going to get a zoomed up version, and I'm going to go into the pros and cons of each machine that I have found over the last 2 years of printing with these. There are a lot of great videos out there. One awesome one I'd recommend is Frankly Built's recent one he posted a couple days ago, just showcasing the differences between all the major printers in 2024. So with that said, I want to jump into it. Price point first and foremost. The A1 is $299, the P1P is $449, and the P1S is $549, and that is just the printer. We're not talking about any of the additional material sending units that allow for multicolor. So $299, $449, $549. This has a full enclosure. There's a front panel and a top enclosure as well. This has no enclosure, and this has no enclosure as well. The main difference is, before we go into the printers themselves, this is a Core XY printer, which means the bed goes up and down, and the print head moves forward and left and right. The bed slinger, the print head only goes from the left to right, and the bed itself goes front to back. So this limits you, and that's one of the main points why I love this machine, is to print long pieces of material. So you're printing one panel, you're shifting it down, you're printing another panel, shifting it down. Let me jump off screen real quick. Okay, sorry for that delay. This long piece was printed on this machine, and it's much easier to thread this material through without having the enclosure. So that being said, that's one of the main perks of, if you want to do this a little bit more intensely with some bigger, wider pieces of fabric, that's one of the reasons why I picked this machine. Okay, the next thing to consider is how many colors do you want to print with? The A1 has the AMS Lite, which is not enclosed, and it has up to 4 spools that have little motors in there that feed the filament through to the hot end. Really great. The P series, however, and the X series can link up to 4 AMS units together. So this is an enclosed unit. I put little desiccant pouches in the front. There's desiccant here. It creates its own dry box to keep your filament dry. So not just 4 colors, 8 colors, 12 colors, but 16 colors if you want it. And all it takes is one AMS hub that's $48.99. And each of the PTFE tubes goes from one of the AMS units to the next, and it automatically tells it when to pull it out, when to put it back in, etc. That's one of the main perks. These units themselves are $249, and I think these are $199. Cannot be sure. Let's skip to the next part. All right, what a fun sound. Let's get into it. The A1, $299 for just the printer. If you want the combo with the AMS Lite, it's only $449, so a really great deal. It prints on fabric beautifully, does a really nice job. Like all of the Bamboo printers, it has auto bed leveling, which means regardless of the sheets that I have on there, this is a magnetic P-flat sheet that I almost exclusively use when I'm using these print plates and printing with my 3D printers. This is the regular textured sheet. Underneath we have small magnets that hold it down. This is one of the potential cons, because the magnets that I tend to use are these long bar magnets, and we can see the pole that it gets stuck to because of those magnets. So if you're trying to place the fabric down and the magnet along that line, it might be a little pain. When you add that secondary layer, it doesn't seem to be that much of an issue. Show that same A little bit less, but it is still there. Moving on, one of the pros, and in my mind, one of the biggest things that sets apart the A1 from the P series is the usable build size with multicolor printing. With this, you have the full 256 by 256. The filament cutter is over here on this right-hand side, which means as this shifts over and cuts the filament to pull out the old filament and put the new filament back in, there's no lost space because this screen is already here. Whereas with the P series, and we'll get into it when we have that up, this is the exclusion zone because the cutter on the P series is on the left-hand side. So that's a point that goes to the A1. We do have the purges that happen on the left-hand side, so you'll need another little bin or something to catch those. Really nice perk is the touchscreen. If I had an SD card, it would show up images of that. You get the filament. We can control everything here. It's a really nice system. It has a little assistant as well that will tell you when to lubricate, when to maintain, etc. Do all the things. This can print up to 4 colors, but not more than 4 colors. So it's got each individual, it's got 1, an arrow facing up, 2, an arrow facing down. So you load them in. They're little independent hubs. Really great. Another pro, and this is the ease of use, when swapping out a nozzle, this front plate will just pop up. Let's see if I can do it when I'm behind the camera. That will pop up, and here is a quick nozzle change. So if you're looking to replace the nozzle, instead of having to take out Allen screws, it's just a quick flip and you're done. Okay, to show you the process, it would be hot. This is unplugged and has not been heated. You take the silicone sock off, and there's a little hinge right there, so you flip that open, and then you just grab the hot end and you'll pull it out. And then you can replace the hot end. This is a 0.4, you can replace it with a 0.2, 0.6, 0.8, etc. So that is the perk. So then you'd plug it back in and reverse the process, close the door and put the sock back on. And you put it back in. Easy to take care of clogs when it does happen, as this be pushed down and there's a little clip that keeps it secure in there. So let's move on to the P series. I don't think that there's anything else. Oh, there is. This bed, and that's one of the cons, one of the biggest reasons why I wouldn't get this if you're looking to do a little bit more intense pieces that are much larger. So this is the bed slinger, which means it goes front to back. Instead of the P series up there, that goes up and down, which means if we were to have excess fabric on either the left or the right side, there's nowhere for it to go. So it would drag and get caught. So we're limited to the 256 by 256 build plate size. I think that's it. If there's anything else, I'll add it onto it. The other thing to know is the camera is right here, and it has a little privacy screen on it. So that's a perk. This is the only one that has a privacy screen built into it. All right, this is the P1P. This is my favorite. This is the open enclosure. And one of the main reasons why I love this so much is because I can print long pieces of material and I can have access from it from all the sides, not the back, the top as well if I need to. I can have lengths of fabric that are rolled up underneath, potentially a full yard. And because the bed goes up and down, there's no problem with the movement of that gantry system. So this doesn't get tangled, so I just need to make sure that it's either rolled up, put a little tissue down there and put a little weight on it. And then I can print it, and when I'm ready to shift and print something like a headband, for example, I can then move it down like a little conveyor belt
and I can repeat the process. So that's the main reason why I love the Core XY printer over the bed slinger. Now let's get into a couple of things that I've noticed while printing with the P1P. One of the main things is the exclusion area that I mentioned before. So if this were the build plate size here, we're going to have a small area right here that we cannot print. As the tool head comes up and to the left, we'll see if it did go past that, then the filament would be cut. So it's right below that. Whereas if it's back, it can print a little bit more. So this can be remedied by a little pin, but that limits you to, again, single color printing. So we move this up and then we can shift this inside and it will remain stuck or stationary there. Another pro of this, obviously the AMS units, to be able to print up to 16 colors is a game changer. To have a dry box built in essentially to each one to keep filament dry and stored properly is fabulous. Another one of the pros that I like is having the poop chute on the back, so it is less of a footprint. So if you see behind me, I can just stack them right next to each other with my AMS units up on the top. One of the cons, if you will, if you really need a touchscreen, this is a push-to-click button, a little OK for the menu, etc. It's a small touchscreen, but generally I'm using my printer or my phone, so it doesn't matter. It has a totally open enclosure, so it's customizable. You can add a back panel, you can add side panels if you want to, you can print them out. I like the top that it's open. This allows it to be a little bit more free. With the lid on it, there was some issue that this rubs up against it, so there have been risers that have been modified and printed in the 3D community. Let's see, it's going to be faster than the A1 because it's a Core XY. So if you're printing tall things, great choice. For me, again, a lot of the things I'm printing are very skinny. I'm sewing them onto fabrics. I'm using them as their own textile. So the height really doesn't make a difference. It is the same with both the A units and the P units as the 256 overall height.
Here showing the P1P, we'll lift this up and look at the build plate, as there are 1, 2, 3 screws that hold it down instead of all of those small tiny magnets that the A1 had.
This is the P1S. If you were to get the combo right now with one AMS unit and the P1S at $749, for just the printer itself, single color is $549. It has a door and it has a top panel. I take those both off because I like having access again from the top, and having this partially open like this for me is a hazard, so I just took it off as well. Then you're left with the sides, because this is an enclosure model, so part of that money you're paying for is the enclosure. I have left these on, but I'll probably take them off. Talking about getting the fabric lengths in here and rolling them, I'd much rather have these panels off, and I don't need this auxiliary fan. I've actually taken off the back panel and unplugged the auxiliary fan because A, I don't need the additional cooling, and B, it was blowing the fabric around while it was printing. So I ended up having to disable it every print. Instead of that, I just unplugged it. It is the same Core XY, the same printer as the P1P. The only difference, again, is the enclosure and that auxiliary fan. The hot end and the extruder gears are the same. We'll talk about that at the end of this video. And it still has that same exclusion zone with that cutter being up there in that top left corner. So,
and looking at the P1S, we'll lift this up and we see there are no screws, so they've changed the mounting mechanism for the P1S.
That's the only difference. You're paying for the enclosure, so if you do want to print some more exotic materials, carbon fiber, nylon, etc., you can do that. Again, with both of the P series, you will need a hub if you want to bump it up to the up to 16 colors, which is that additional one-time $48.99. Let's cover, I'm going to back it up, get these printers up here, and then cover the hot ends and the extruder gears. All right, we are coming to an end of this video. The question remains, what printer is for you? So here's a little overview. If you just skip to the end and you want to know the basics. The A1 single color $299. Up to 4 colors is $449. The P1P basic color single color is $449 with an AMS for $249 additionally, so it's $700 total. For the P1S, you get the base single color for $549, and when you get the combo, it's only $200, so that brings the total to $749. So $50 savings if you get the P1P and the AMS, which means you don't get the enclosure that's wrapped around, nor the auxiliary fan. In either instance, if you want to print any filaments that are abrasive, such as glow-in-the-dark, anything glitter, nylon, carbon fiber, etc., that you would get in the X series, you will need to get a hardened steel nozzle. And you can see the difference here. The one on the left is a 0.2 nozzle, and the one on the right is a 0.6. You can see the color difference clearly. Having this as an upgrade, this is, I believe, $19.99, and I believe the extruder gears, hardened steel extruder gears, are $34.99 for the full thing. So you'd be spending an extra $50 on the upgrade. So take the $50 off of the enclosure that you'd spend and spend the $50 on hardened extruder gear and hardened hot end to bump it up for the ability to print the more abrasive filaments. You can do the same with the A series as well, with the hardened steel nozzle and the hardened steel extruder gears. So with that said, I hope you enjoyed the video and all the pros and cons. If you have questions, drop them in the comment section and I will be sure to answer them. See you soon.